Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Next Generation Asset Management and IT Financial Analytics, Optimizing IT Value in a World of Change. My name is Raleigh Gould and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Our featured speaker is Dennis Drogseth, VP of Research at Enterprise Management Associates. Dennis brings over 30 years of experience in various aspects of marketing and business planning for service management solutions. He supports EMA through leadership in business service management, CMDB systems, automation systems, and service-centric financial optimization. Dennis will be concluding his presentation by taking your questions, so I do encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity by logging your questions at any time throughout the course of the presentation using the Q&A functionality in the right-hand column of your screen. Also, today's event is being recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email from Enterprise Management Associates tomorrow that will include the on-demand playback as well as a link to Dennis's new research report. And before I hand things over to Dennis, I did want to thank the research sponsors of Dennis's Next Gen Asset Management Research. They are Blazent, Flexera Software, Fruition Partners, and Scalable. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our featured speaker, Dennis Drogseth. Dennis?
Thanks, Raleigh, and welcome everyone. I'm going to present you with quite a bit of data, so I kind of apologize for that. But you can also watch it further, I believe, on our website. Raleigh can give you more background there. And, of course, there's a report with all this and more in our library for you if you're interested. So for those of you without photographic memories, I apologize. I'll be covering a lot fairly quickly. But there was a lot of good data in this research. So we began this with a bit of an agenda that I would say is fairly well supported, but it goes beyond just what the data can say. So I'm going to introduce the agenda to you in the next slide, and it's the question of how IT needs to evolve and is beginning to evolve from a cost center to a value provider. The rest of the presentation will highlight a lot of the data that is, I think, important in sort of looking at that change and what's going on, demographics to understand how we collected data, some of the organizational dynamics and processes and best practices, functional priorities, modeling, which is a focus here in terms of CMDB and ADDMs, and we do a lot of consulting there, so that was of interest to us. And some of the extensions like enterprise or green IT, and we looked at cloud as well. And then wrap up conclusions. So anytime you hear data from anyone, I guess it's good to know why they're, what kind of axes they've got to grind or what chips they're carrying on their shoulder and or what perspectives at minimum they're bringing to the story. And so I'll start with sharing mine, which is taken in part or confirmed in part through a wonderful book that I'll often bring up called The Quantum Age of IT by Charles Araujo, who's been on the ITSMF board. Generally, the idea, of course, is that we've had a lot of IT domain experts in their cubicles doing things that domain experts in cubicles do with a sort of mysterious veil between IT and their consumers. And their expertise is defined who they are. They often use siloed tools that define who they are. And the mystery surrounding the technology has kept them rather protected as a cost center. That is changing. We now have 12-year-olds or probably 8-year-olds on the way to the movies provisioning applications in their iPhones or iPads. And the notion that there's this wall between the consumer and the provider in IT is rapidly eroding. That's changing the need for IT to become not just a cost center, but a value provider, in a sense a retailer selling product to a consumer that they actually understand, not just generically, but individually in terms of persona and requirements. The move to bring asset management under the shield of service management is a core enabler to make that transition, because the services are the products of IT, and so all the assets need to be managed as an enabler to deliver that product and optimize for those values. So that is my summary agenda, and of course we could do a whole presentation on that, but that's not for today. So for today, just rather quickly, I'll get you sent on some of the demographics. We try to keep a fairly balanced look at larger and smaller companies and enterprises, and you can see we had a good number above 20,000 employees, but we also had, as you see, 21% with fewer than 1,000. And some of the data that we also do in analysis, it's in the report, we'll see things like smaller companies more likely to have service and asset management integrated to some degree because there's less of it to bring together. More likely to store data in spreadsheets even, although we'll look at how common that is in general. And they believe that their software license management is more under control. Again, there's a lot less of it if you're a smaller environment. Large companies, by contrast, a little more likely to have investments in automated inventory and discovery, more likely significantly to prioritize a CMDB as a trusted source. Although funny enough, or interestingly enough to me, CMDB adoption is becoming more evenly spread between small and large environments. And related to that, larger companies more likely to do modeling to support the complexity of their environments, have application discovery and dependency mapping, and they're also more likely to extend their asset support into enterprise services, where they can, in some cases, get respect for the first time, as I've seen. You know, what's your value? Well, now you're starting to support facilities, or you're starting to support HR, and that brings cred to IT. A couple of other demographic highlights, I suppose. Most common verticals in this research were manufacturing, finance and banking, insurance, healthcare, overall government, and then retail in various forms. We had strong executive content, 17% were director level or above. Actually, 30% were director level or above, and 17% were C-level within IT. 11% were non-IT executives and professionals focused in the IT asset management environment. Budget was about $10 billion, and 38% of IT budgets, and this is consistent, although it's a fairly strong statement, showed an increase of more than 10%. Now that's, in other words, it would have been about 50 or more that showed increase, and very small that showed decrease. So this was right at the core of what we were looking at. To what degree are assets and services being managed together, and what are the populations like who are doing that, or that are doing that? And this was sort of a record high. We've looked at this before. It's been kind of about 33%, about third and a third and a third. We're now seeing 10% jump in those who are bringing asset and service management together. Clearly a third looking at it separately, and a somewhat smaller population still looking to do it but have committed plans in the future. I think one of the things, if there's one thing actually that I'd like to drive home from the data anyway, it's that there is a kind of dimension to a more progressive group in optimizing IT assets, and that dimension, or that profile maybe is a better word, includes a number of factors. One of them is bringing service and asset management together. And some of the attributes there are more likely to have a single organization managing asset and financial requirements across all domains, so that you're not looking at piece parts in isolation. More likely to have automated discovery and inventory. More likely to have integrated cloud and cloud environments into the asset strategy. more likely to support IT infrastructure library or other best practices such as Six Sigma, more likely to have better data, more likely to have linkages across data sources. Service modeling and CMDB are also on the rise in this group that's bringing service and asset together, not surprisingly. And we'll look at some of the impact of that down the road in this presentation. More likely to have app dependency, optimize software license usage, have service catalog, all these other values, support green IT, support enterprise extensions, and have added credibility with the business they support or the organization, because you're more likely to get a raise, basically, as well, if you bring asset and service management together. We also looked, and there are some parallel values to having a single organization coordinating cross-domain assets for IT versus I own PCs, and I don't want to talk to you if you have servers, and I don't want to talk to you if you have network, et cetera, albeit there are domain requirements in optimizing those environments too. But bringing them together so you can understand their impact on services and service delivery does require a more centralized approach. If you look down the road, then the next is apps and systems are managed together, network and telecom are separate, then domains all siloed, and that again is progress because that was a higher number in the past. And then the last group, you might almost link to the first. Everything's together except for telco, so that if you added that together, you get 58% have a fairly common look at the asset environment for IT. So where is that cross-domain leadership coming from? Who's going to drive that? Well, the executive suite, not surprisingly, is the number one priority in driving this. 58% of all respondents, as you see at the top, showed that some level of C involvement was very key in planning and implementing a strategic asset management direction. It may have simply been that they put their foot down and screamed, but they were there and concerned about it and wanted to see it happen. And this percentage was significantly higher among those with cross-domain capabilities and also significantly higher with service and asset brought together. Beyond that is operations, procurement, financial accounting, and data center. And here, one of the reasons in the cartoon down on the right there is if I'm a CIO and I really want to sit at the table with the CEO, I need to have this under control in a way that I can talk about it cohesively. And that little cartoon sort of is a borrowed way of reinforcing that. So in terms of standards and processes, you can see the priority was Six Sigma, interestingly enough. Although if you added ITIL version 3 and version 2, you'd get an equivalent number. ISO 19770 for the software asset management came in a strong third. And you can go down. It's an interesting mix of quality focus, project management focus, and sort of process-related values. I'll share this little anecdote. One of the challenges in a strategic initiative is invariably process and invariably communication and invariably the human factor. And one of my favorite quotes that came from a conversation about this problem related to this type of initiative came from someone who said, well, they were speaking with one of their cohorts, and he said, yeah, I believe in standards as long as they're mine. So I think sums up the problem pretty well. Functional priorities, and I'm hoping you can read this. It's a bit small. I'll kind of try to highlight the clusters for you. Basically, the top four, in various ways, all involve change and move to change and optimizing across change and lifecycle. The fourth there you'll see is virtualization and the move to cloud. Interesting to support the fifth down, it reinforces that notion that applications are assets. They're assets and products And so managing those and optimizing those with SLAs came in fifth. Then basic key requirements, inventory record accuracy, and then mobile devices being important. If you look at the bottom, though, which a lot of the lower numbers are some of the most challenging. For instance, more effective analytics was second from the bottom across the entire environment. That should be on the rise. The opportunities to invest in that is on the rise. And looking at assets with catalog, and then fourth one up from the bottom, consolidating silo assets. Also a challenge. And mind you, when we say we're linking across domain, we're linking service and asset together, that doesn't mean that all the domains are consolidated, nor does it mean that even if it's a single organization, that's a done deal yet. It's usually and almost, in fact, always a work in progress. Some of the other tech priorities, we looked at automation requirements to optimize the processes and speed up efficiencies, and runbook and configuration automation led. It was followed by workload, service request, workflow, and patch. Although patch is pervasive, it isn't as viewed as strategic. When it came to sort of core technology investments, project management, software license management, workflow, and then automated config led for integrating asset and service management. But here, when we looked at actual technology priorities, the next thing was actually advanced analytics or data mining or however that was done, correlation, anomaly detection, whatever, to bring all the assets together in a common pool and understand how to optimize them better. We looked at 66% had automated discovery inventory in place. And again, it was interesting to see frequency with which updates occurred. We saw that about 56% were trying to update some of the assets information, not all of it, either daily or more frequently. 17% were trying to update in real time. Whereas if you look at the group that was, will do it very occasionally, 21% were either multiple times a month, monthly, or less than monthly. Now, mind you, this is the most frequent updates. So, needless to say, even in the changing world of cloud and virtualization, not everything has to be updated without frequency, but some does. 51% had a service catalog in place, and some of those supported cloud. In fact, that's a growing requirement, integrating cloud and services with the own services that you provide. Again, these are products and assets that you're delivering to your consumers. And 46% had an app store in place. Where's stuff being stored? Well, right now, it's still mostly in spreadsheets if you look at the dominant single source. And then an asset management database that might or might not be part of a federated system. You go down actually fairly low to look at CMDB and federated CMS, a lot of local DBs. So the other notion, obviously, this adds up to well over 100 percentage points. You didn't pick one. You're looking at many multiple sources. And in fact, I think that's probably understated in this chart. But when you're asked about what's the most trusted place to put data, spreadsheets drops to third place, and asset management database comes in first, which is good to see. CMDB and federated CMS rise as well. Paper stays pretty low, outsourced consulting very low, trusting all that data to someone outside, and Visio at the bottom. Some other data management highlights. Perceived accuracy averaged about 90%. I'm confident in saying that's a much better story than is true in most environments, but that's what was guessed. The average respondent thought that they spent about 10 hours a week solving data accuracy issues. 33% updating asset in real time, and we went over that in terms of the other chart, frequency of updates So that's 33% that would look at multiple times a day or real time. 73% have some form of software asset license management in place that might not be comprehensive, but they have something going there. But only 57 believe they're optimizing license management well for all or most vendors, and 64% are not tracking usage for desktop software still, which is actually kind of shocking. I'm sorry, only 64% are tracking usage for desktop software. Still pretty low, it would seem to me, given that requirement. Some of the most common investments for license were the top 5: Microsoft Office 365, not surprisingly, VMware, HP, Oracle Sales Cloud, and Salesforce.com were the top 5. So let's move into the area of CMDB and modeling. I was pleased to see that a significant majority were trying to at least begin to link assets through modeling to owners or customers or physical interdependencies. Use the term modeling loosely. It could come in many forms. Of course, CMDB is one, through configuration management database. Others might be app dependency, or they might be some more of a dashboard type of modeling. But we kept the question open. 57% had a CMDB either deployed or planned. 51% have app dependency mapping deployed or planned. And of those, 91% will support asset management either directly through their app dependency, which links investments to application services either directly or through a CMDB. So there's a little chart at the bottom there that is illegible, I realize. But the main point is that as we look at this configuration management system evolving as a foundation, here there are really two big pockets. One is more of a process-centric, the dark circle on the left, and one is a more real-time, performance-oriented capability. Managing assets tends to sit more directly with the more traditional service desk-centric CMDB, where you bring configuration, asset, and IT owners all together, and then start to move into understanding performance issues, managing for life cycle, and configuration issues to optimize your assets. How is this being done today in terms of the CMDB anyway? You can see it's not a big difference, between top and bottom. There's something of a difference, but it scales down fairly gradually. Assets to customers, assets to operational owners, logical requirements that can be usually valuable in planning, optimizing, and solving problems to do with IT assets. Inventory and discovery, lifecycle overall, then introduction. You look at lifecycle, then introduction of new assets, then drop down one, retirement. All that's really lifecycle. Right in the middle, there's that priority to map applications to assets, so the service and the asset can be understood as an integrated package. And then again, that challenge in the strategic area, lower in terms of realization, cross-domain collaboration, getting assets into the service catalog or linked directly to the service catalog, that much higher level of automation than is usual or most IT organizations are ready for today. So again, with my perhaps prejudice to share with you why this is a good thing if you're investing in a modeling system or a configuration management system to link physical and logical interdependencies, manage change, etc. What are some of the attributes that you see in this group? Well, significantly more likely to integrate asset and service management, right up at the top. More likely to have a single coordinating organization. Twice as likely to have automated asset and inventory. 3 times more likely to have a service catalog. 3 times more likely to support green IT. 2.5 times more likely to support some level of enterprise services. Twice as likely to get a raise as those without a CMDB. Some of the other little attributes that we looked at, twice as likely to support best practices like ITIL. That's not surprising. And kind of as confirmation, 3 times more likely to target the CMDB as one of the top 2 technologies for unifying asset and service management, meaning that they are believers because they've got it deployed or committed. Being able to link multiple data sources cohesively, more likely to invest in app dependency, et cetera, and as we'll talk down the road, 4 times more likely to start to integrate portfolio planning and application portfolio planning in particular into the asset strategy, which I think is a key value. Also much more progressed in the move to integrate cloud. So how is that for a sell? Next generation asset management is reaching out into new areas, and the 2 most obvious are green IT, where you're looking at power, heating, facilities, et cetera, and bringing those as cost-related items associated with assets and optimizing those. 58% incorporating the management of some enterprise assets, and the next bullet, 2 bullets actually, target where the focus is. Building facilities, utilities, power costs, shadow IT we included as an option, and that came in fairly high. It's really kind of apples and oranges, I realize, although it's outside of IT. Lob costs, manufacturing costs, and transportation costs. In other words, optimizing asset management capabilities to support the broader enterprise. So application, bringing application portfolio management as sort of the ultimate product in most cases of IT anyway. There are other products and services. And linking that with core asset strategies scored, I thought, fairly well. 66% view this as somewhat or very important to bringing and integrating application portfolio into their broader asset management strategy. 68% believe they've either done it or will within 12 months. So that's actually even a higher percentage, but about the same. And how is this being done, which is what this chart looks at in terms of data points. But most say, 52%, a combination of dialogue and analytic data. And then when you look at mostly dialogue or mostly analytic, we came in about even on both. There's a lot of data points. It was interesting for me to see, I want to really unify this. I want to have a cohesive view of my product brought in with my assets. What am I going to turn to? So enterprise architecture and business modeling systems still came in at the top, which is interesting and I think very progressive in many ways. Data on service delivery, and easier said than done, end-to-end came in 2, tied with business analyst input, which is, of course, one of the traditional sources. Data on service, cost of service delivery end-to-end, including public, a growing requirement with cloud. And, of course, as you might have already guessed from me, this number 5 is my personal favorite. Data on application usage and customer preferences gathered through analytic transactions. Real hard data, not what somebody imagines to be true about consumer behavior, usage, and impact that I believe, hope will rise up the charts to the top in the next 5 to 10 years. And then dialogue came in informal, kind of right after that, formal a little bit below it, and then data on usage, which is kind of a subset of what I was talking about through surveys and dialogues versus through transactional data. Cloud also key, no surprise. 71% were at least involved with cloud at some level, and 64% thought cloud was impacting their asset management critically or significantly, and only 1%, pretty much no one, thought cloud was not significant. And by the way, there were 168 respondents, something I should have said up front, in total in general. But this is 120 here to look at the impact of cloud, those who felt that cloud was impacting them to some degree. Interesting what you see here in terms of cloud, you see clouds changing how they measure costs. It's changing the game. It's requiring higher levels of automation. You'll see organizational change comes in three. And this list is really a wash, pretty much, for the top five. Adds new wrinkles, makes it harder to really get your arms around costs because it's all spread across the internal, external, and non-cloud mosaic. Adds political complications. So if you look at 3 and 5, you're talking politics, really. Challenges, who owns what? How do we make this all work? Requires more real-time awareness. That goes along as well with automation. So a significantly lesser, but still credible percentage think it's actually easier with cloud. The last group ups the bar on how we account for infrastructure and service usage. But that's a growing requirement from cloud. We're seeing happily become more and more of a practice measuring usage. The last group here, just the summary takeaways. And again, I'll reinforce the fact that, if you don't have a photographic memory, there's a report in the library you can request. And I believe you can also play this back online. There's a lot of data here. Just to quickly summarize, a strong move to combine asset and service management over the past, and something that needs to come together more in the future. Significant investment in a single organization for managing strategic assets. Prioritizing managing assets for change across the lifecycle is functional need. Project management, software license management, and workflow in terms of top functional technology investments. Spreadsheets, sad to say, still dominate as a place where asset management lives, but not as a place where it's most trusted. 73% have software license management, and 62% are moving to a modeling system to start to link assets to logical and physical attributes. Strong values from CMDB shown in the analysis I presented. A move to green IT, nearly half, for power and understanding those costs as part of the asset picture. 58% moving to enterprise, looking at enterprise assets as an extension of their direction, and 71% experiencing cloud as part of their environment with significant impact from cloud. The last bullet is that axe to grind again, that you can either claim this substantiates or not, but I would say that it moves in this direction, especially if you look at those more successful trends. The IT is starting to move to understand the delivery of its products from a cost center to a more retail-like operation, and measuring assets to support that value provider model versus just being a bunch of sort of isolated Dilberts under the umbrella of a cost center. With that, I'm probably ready to turn over to you for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and log them using the Q&A functionality located in the right-hand column of your screen. Also, as a reminder, I will be sending out an email tomorrow that will include the playback URL and the link to Dennis's report. You can access it on the EMA website as well at the URL listed on the screen. So, Dennis, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the questions. The first one is, can you explain more about how IT can expect to show value? What are the value metrics?
Yeah, that's a great half-hour discussion, right? But and there are plenty of folks around that will say, well, we can't show value. That's not possible. How do you do it? I would say, to me, I would love to center in that transactional data set, looking at real data on usage from both a type of consumer perspective, a personality perspective, looking at outcomes, looking at frequency of usage. Not only is that valuable for license management, it's valuable in providing hard data to support what this product is like and how it's being used. My analogy there would be, if you sell vacuum cleaners, wouldn't you want to watch the movies that show what your customers are doing with your product, how they're being used, when they look frustrated, what's working and what's not? Those movies are starting to become available I'm hoping they replace some of the top linked sources for now. I believe they're all useful, but I think that data is the best in moving forward and showing value.
Great, thank you, Dennis. I'm not sure if your research covered this or not, but this attendee wants to know, how about managing mobile and BYOD devices? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we did have a data point on mobile. That's definitely a growth area, and it involves a number of dimensions as a lifecycle asset management versus just license or what have you. It's interesting to look at that problem set. That problem set includes provisioning the mobile device, understanding and modeling the owner and associating the owner throughout the life cycle. That owner is going to probably have a non-mobile or two device. There may be 3 or 4 devices associated with that owner as an end device suite, so to speak. So again, if you can link that, model that to the owner, understanding who they are, understanding all the assets they're using cohesively, that's important. Then there's managing, of course, delivery of services, so for security, being able to wipe things clean if somebody wants to give their mobile device to their niece, and understanding how to manage the performance of the assets across, the infrastructure, track things like end-user response time by browser, and that's another dimension that often gets separated. But in the end, it has to do with the quality of the service and the lifecycle value of that asset. So it's all those are high growth areas. Very few people put them together as a common package for mobile.
Thanks for that insight, Dennis. The next question is, one of your takeaways was that spreadsheets still have a high level of use. Any insight as to the reluctance to adopt a vendor solution and to improve the process?
People love to work the way they used to working, and I'm the same way. In ways I probably won't get into sharing here, but I'm not always a good example of being progressive when it comes to new technologies. If you're comfortable with a spreadsheet, it's there. It's just too tempting not to use it. It's been a traditional form. I think, and you get into that, while I'm comfortable with mindset and what I mentioned in terms of standards, right? I believe in standards as long as they're mine. I believe in spreadsheets because I use them. But it takes a little bit of process focus and a little bit of sometimes executive leadership to move to a much more dynamic system that people share, which means changing how they work. That's not a trivial thing. But it is progressive, and it was good to see that from a trusted source perspective, spreadsheets were down on the list, not number 1.
Thanks, Dennis. Another question that came in is, has the industry defined KPIs that are meaningful for the line of business manager to understand?
Wow, that's a great question. And then the next one would be, what are they? Huh? Yeah, so if I parse that question as being, has the industry, meaning a standards body, I'm not aware quite of, I know there might be some claimants, but I would say the answer is probably not really, not meaningfully. On the other hand, if you look at certain deployments and certain solutions that are already available, you're starting to see that being filled in. And that is, like the question portfolio, a matter of dialogue and technology. That could be many hours of conversation. The one thing I'll add, though, now is, how broken it's been. I talked to a gentleman who was lead of IT transformation services for one of the major systems integrators and services providers. And he said he would sit between the CEO and the CIO like a UN translator, between 2 completely different cultural groups, trying to get them to communicate. And I would admit that language to bridge IT and the business has yet to evolve in a broader way. But there are tools and data points out there modeling as a way of sort of beginning to bring that together.
Good to know. Thank you, Dennis. Another question is, will you model a cloud SaaS application in CMDB or asset management?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, okay. So to me, I would say the answer is a federated story and having a configuration management system where there's multiple pockets of data, not all data in one place, in which case it's part of the CMS, or configuration management system. And in dealing with cloud, the phrase I like to use, I'm working on an actual book around this, is not a system, a single source of truth. Truth is immutable, but nothing in IT is immutable right now. I would call it a system of relevance. So what might be important to know with a software as a service is, are there identifiable owners in that public cloud guy? Are there any kind of partners, or are you dealing with the lawyer? Maybe you should model the lawyer who wrote the contract as a CI, I don't know. But what do you need to do to bridge that process? Because ultimately, and we have other data that shows this, the buck stops not with the provider, but with you when there's a problem. So you want to be able to optimize that, understand quality, understand how it's being used, and be prepared to address issues, and have the data relevant to that, whether it's in a separate database from the CMDB, but linked through a common modeling system, or stored in the CMDB, ideally probably in a separate and federated resource.
Great, thank you, Dennis. That concludes our event today. I wanted to thank everyone for joining us and to remind you to look for that email from Enterprise Management Associates that will arrive tomorrow. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.